listeners, you found Sanctuary's YouTube channel. This is where we post virtual interviews with women in various fields, experts in their own right, on topics that we think our listeners will be interested in. My name is Myrna Haskell. I'm executive editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online magazine for women that empowers and inspires with a focus on the arts, humanitarian pursuits, health and wellness, inspirational travel, career, and finance. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. This morning, my guest is Dr. Sherry Kelly, and you may recognize her because she's been a guest on Sanctuary's program many times. She has her mug, yes. And this is part 2 of a 2-part series on all about Alzheimer's. Just a little bit more about Sherry. She is a psychologist. She is a sought-after keynote speaker, and she is also the founder of Mind and Heart Coaching. Good morning, Sherry.
Good morning, dear friend. It's so great to be here with you.
And I'm so happy to have you again. And Sherry, I want to let you know that our listeners really responded to part 1. And in part 1 of All About Alzheimer's, of course, we just discussed the different types of dementia. We talked about new statistics and research that was out there. And anybody who's listening now who did not see part 1 can get that directly from our homepage at sanctuary-magazine.com. And the response was phenomenal. People are really interested in this topic. Of course, we have a lot of people who have been affected in some way. Their loved ones or their friends have been affected by Alzheimer's. But today we're going to focus on prevention. But I wanted to start out by asking you about this idea, and I actually had a few listeners who wrote in about it. Who's affected by early onset Alzheimer's? I know specifically some people who had parents who were diagnosed in their 50s. And I think sometimes even in the 40s, people can be diagnosed, right? And I thought we'd just start out a little bit about that, and you can tell us why that happens.
Yes. So early onset Alzheimer's is not that common, even though you hear about it a lot. I think because it's just so very sad and frightening. It's probably about 10% of Alzheimer's cases are early. It might be a little bit more now in terms of diagnosis, but the artifact of why it seems low is because it might not be diagnosed in time. It might take a long time to get diagnosed because people are in their 30s and you don't even think of that, or 40s. So the big factor in that is genetics, and they have a specific genetic mutation that runs through the family. And also other people that are susceptible when you have the gene, and then also when you've suffered a head injury or multiple concussions. So there's this confluence of factors that make you more susceptible for early Alzheimer's, but the main one so far seems to be genetics.
But today, since I just wanted to clarify that because there were some readers that had some questions about it. But since we're focusing on prevention, and I know a lot of people have heard this before, exercise your brain, but you are the expert on exercising your brain. So I was hoping you can talk a little bit about how that improves recall and retrieval, things like that.
Absolutely. So I'm trained as a neuropsychologist. So I love exercising the brain. I love to walk around the brain, but it's not just the brain. It's actually the brain and the body together. So, we don't start from the neck up. We're integrated. We're an integrated system. So the good news is that you have more power than you even realize over the wonderful steps you can take to keep your brain vibrant.
Thank goodness.
And yes, exactly, as you age. So being active, social support, that exercises your brain. Learning something new, growing, somehow intellectual stimulation and growing,
learning something new.
Yeah.
I read something on that because I think a lot of people think, I'll just continue doing my crossword puzzles I've done for 40 years, or but it's actually learning the new thing that you never knew about before that even helps more, right? Yes. Not that it's bad to do the crossword puzzles. Yes. I don't mean to come off that way, but is that right?
Yes. And it's, getting your brain to be flexible. Can you move from one thing to the other? Can you try a new direction or try to use skills that maybe you haven't used in a while? And it doesn't have to be something like doing a crossword or, word search. Things that are really good, like painting, taking a painting class, taking a sculpting class. Oh, I'm preaching to the choir here with you, right? About art.
Yeah.
The importance of art.
Well, I want to learn how to play piano. I've said that my whole life and I still haven't done it.
I do too. And, learning to taking dancing lessons. I mean, something that's interactive and also gets you out of the house. Okay. And it can be doing something new, like, take, girlfriends and get together and do a book club or do a coffee and conversation like you do. Talk about a hot topic, talk about something that's meaningful to you. So it's just, exercising your brain in a new way. And also, I just want to say, a lot of people are afraid. Okay. They're afraid to try something new.
Yes, that's true.
And I think if, you might be afraid of embarrassing yourself. So, if, you might not want to learn how to play bridge or canasta because you might be afraid you're going to embarrass yourself, or bridge, you might upset a partner. Do something that brings you joy. Okay. So that you stick with it, that you just don't give up. It's okay, to try new things and not be with it the whole time. But I want you to explore what you're afraid of.
Right. I understand.
Understand what you might be afraid of. So fear can be in the back seat, but it can't be the driver.
Okay.
All right.
Because we're all afraid of not being our best at times, right?
I know. Yeah. And we all expect so much of ourselves. Pickleball is really popular now down in Florida. A lot of people like it. It's very social. So if you can, find activities that get you out of the house, make you social if you can't get out of the house. Those are the types of activities that will give you that double hit of brain stimulation, but also the social support that's so important in longevity.
Okay. So now here's another thing I wanted to discuss with you today. And you've talked to me about this a lot, and you keep saying, Myrna, it's the brain-gut connection.
Oh, gosh.
So I was hoping we could dig into a little bit about diet and what can be preventative for dementia in that category.
Well, this is research. There's a lot of research on this, on the brain-gut connection in different diseases, not just Alzheimer's, and the brain-gut connection in mood also, depression. There's research on the brain-gut connection in Parkinson's. So one of the things that researchers are looking at with Alzheimer's is, how does our gut affect the different proteins in our body? And some of these proteins, like the tau protein, is something that they're looking at because the tau protein makes these tangles in your brain. In Alzheimer's, you've got plaques and tangles. So you've got the amyloid, which causes the plaques, and you've got the tau protein that causes.
Right. We talked a little bit about that last time in part one.
That's really interesting research. And you're looking at, we all have different, I'd say, gut universes. And, each one's unique in the flora and fauna inside of our guts, for lack of a better word. Yeah. And I think this is very exciting research on, how these proteins are, maybe kick-started or fueled inside the gut, and what's the ultimate connection. So I encourage you to, look that up and do more research. You could have an entire coffee and conversation with a nutritionist, dietitian on that one.
I know, and I can tell you, Sherry, too, that when I went off of gluten, when I went gluten-free in 2017, I felt like that helped my arthritis a little bit, even though I was going off the gluten for other reasons. I'm intolerant to it. So inflammation is there a connection between inflammation in the body and Alzheimer's?
Yes, there is. Thanks for asking. Yes. So that different types of inflammation, and that's another thing that researchers are looking at. Yes. So the inflammation from your diet is another factor. And inflammation on all kinds of diseases that hit us as we age, including arthritis. But inflammation is something that is very much connected to your gut as well. So that is a whole wonderful area of research on aging.
People really need to pay attention to what they're putting in their mouths.
People need to pay attention to this through the lifespan. And unfortunately, it just hasn't been something that's been traditionally a focus of medicine. It's becoming more of a focus, but it's an important thing to look at.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the other lifestyle changes though. So I know I've heard exercise might help, but there's this whole idea about also keeping your life organized and how that can help your brain to stay young.
Yes. Yes.
And you had mentioned to me also before something about medication. So let's just talk about a couple of those other things besides diet that can help.
I just want to talk with exercise right now.
Okay.
So there are a number of, and this is really easy. So there are a number of studies that have been published on exercise and aging and keeping your brain vibrant and healthy. So how long should you exercise? Well, there's research out there, including from the NHS in the United Kingdom. They're looking at optimally try to get over 150 or 160 minutes a week. A week, not a day, a week. So my rule of thumb is try to get at least 30 minutes of brisk walking a day or 30 minutes of, jogging. I optimally would like to, do an hour, but I'm being realistic. But, if you can, it doesn't have to be working out at a gym or sweating yourself. You can just, but a brisk walk. So
getting your circulation going,
getting the oxygen going. And one study I love for those of us who were around back in the day, they did a study that found that listening to like ABBA had like the ultimate beats per minute.
There you go. I love ABBA.
So, turn on the disco track.
Okay.
And listen to that. It's that kind of tempo. To keep your heart going. Okay. Now, the nice thing about if you choose and you're able to do it, choose to work out at a gym or a group, have a trainer, you've got accountability. Someone's going to be keeping you on schedule.
Right.
You also got social support. So that's a win-win there also. I'm going to talk about organization because this is interesting. So keeping organized has also a win-win situation. Okay. Something about organizing ourselves and keeping us together in terms of where things are and how we are looking at our lives and looking at our work. Something about just the activity of doing that is good brain stimulation that has a protective mechanism.
I'm so glad because I'm always hyper organized. It's always been my thing since I was a kid. This is a protective mechanism,
against the aging brain or quick aging. I'm not going to say protection against Alzheimer's. I'm just going to say quick aging.
Okay.
It's also an indication that if you can't keep organized, that's a red flag.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're unable to keep organized, if it's really hard for you to put the mail in a special place or organize the bills from the invitations, or if you can't get your receipts together, or if you have a really hard time, even if you have an accountant, keeping track of what you need to do for the accountant, that's a red flag.
Okay.
Now there's a third aspect, which is a win aspect. Being organized diminishes stress in your life.
That's true.
All right. So you're not wasting time trying to find stuff. You're not wasting time looking for something, which causes also stress.
Yes, right.
As well as wasting time. It's stressful. So you really make an effort to keep organized. And there are professional organizers that can come into your house and help you get set up. But removing the clutter, really helps you. And making a system of organization will help you in so many ways. And that brings me to what I joke about my brain. My brain is like my giant tote bag. I know it's right. I know the memory and information is in there. It just takes me a while to find it sometimes.
Yes.
What did I do?
That's right. You know what I was thinking too, though, Sherry, this whole bit about organizing too. That's sort of a win-win-win, because when you're organized and you're not cluttered and your things are put away, look at the problems we have with, having to be worried about falls too, as we get older and elderly. So it's going to help you, not just with your brain health, but your physical health, right?
Right. So exactly. Now I'm going to tell you another benefit of this, how it works. This is like very simplistic on how your brain works in terms of memory and retrieval. Okay. It kind of looks like your computer inside here. Okay. And inside there's an area that has to do with processing information, just like a computer. So what if we want to find something in our computer, a file? What do? We download it and save it. And we make a name for the file, right? We download and save it so that we can later easily retrieve it. Right? The brain works very much in the same way as the computer. Okay. So your ability to retrieve information, find information, very much depends on how you initially download and save it.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right? So when
that makes total sense.
Okay. So when we're organized and we think about, okay, that goes in the tax file, that goes in the holiday card file, that goes in the pay the bill file. And you can speak to yourself as you're even doing it. It's going to be easier to find it later on. Same thing with memories that aren't physical memories. Just say someone's name. Okay, so that's Laura, and Laura I associate with what?
Gigi Trattoria.
My favorite restaurant in Rhinebeck, Gigi. Okay.
Yes.
Right? And
I had to have a shout out for a team member.
I make a mental picture of Gigi's. Okay. Remember Laura, and I'm a visual person, so I think of Laura and her face, and I think of the Gigi sign. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, there's ways of doing it, but just keep that in mind. Your retrieval or your memory in your short-term memory is going to depend on how you download and save that information. Okay, that makes total sense. All right, good deal.
What about, did you want to say anything about prescription medication? Is there a link there? Do we have to be worried about anything we're taking at all? Just quickly.
Yeah, so listen, everybody. So many of us are on so many different medications, and especially as we age, as well as supplements, right? Mm-hmm. So I have this strategy. When you go to the doctor for your checkup, or actually even if you go to a specialist, say you go to an endocrinologist, I encourage people to take all their prescription medications as well as their supplements and put it in a shopping bag and bring it to the doctor's appointment.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because they ask you to write down what meds you're on. Yeah. Well, if you don't have your glasses, or if you're off by one letter, you can mess it up. Have a totally different prescription, or even the amount you're taking, MCG versus MG. So confusing. So make it easy on the doctor's office and on yourself, and just bring everything and show them. Because you might even find that there's an interaction effect, or that one supplement might be lessening the efficacy of your prescription medication. And I'm going to talk also just briefly about sleeping medications and also anxiety medications. So there are some sleeping medications, prescription medications, and prescription drugs we might take for anxiety that can have an impact on our alertness during the day. Okay. And these prescription sleeping meds were not intended to be taken every day over the course of your adulthood. Yet many adults take these medications on a nightly basis. So it's important to be honest with your physician about your need for prescription sleep medications, and what other drugs they might be interacting and how that might be affecting you during the day, and how, if possible, can you wean off of it? And this becomes really complicated for people that do have cognitive decline, and say we have family members that have Alzheimer's. Their Alzheimer's actually might cause them to have sleeping problems.
Right. So sort of like a vicious circle.
It is a very complex situation.
Okay.
So talk to your physician about that.
Okay, good. So I want to end though with a really important topic I'm hoping you can talk about, and that's the idea of the elderly and isolation. Maybe their spouse is gone, their neighbors have downsized, they have no one left to talk to. And so they get depressed, they stay home alone, and they're not socializing. How important is it to continue socializing as we get older?
It's vitally important. Thank you for asking. It's vitally important that your loved ones, that you continue to have social support, that you totally have social support. You need it. You need to stay active. Isolation is one of the worst things that can happen to you.
Okay.
Isolation actually causes a precipitous decline in cognitive functioning. We've even seen this with young people right now. Okay.
Right. With the pandemic.
With the pandemic. So the pandemic's made it particularly difficult for our elderly loved ones to get that social support that they so very much need. I want to also talk about, well-meaning adult kids who may think, Ma, why are you spending money at this club? Or why am I paying money for you to be in this bridge group when you're 90 years old? And that's the worst thing for your loved one, is to take that away from them. Do not take that away from them.
Okay.
They need that contact, that stimulation. They need to know that they matter to someone else, not just the kids. So many people have that identity of being that great card player, or that good artist, or, that volunteer at the hospital or the soup kitchen. Keeping involved in charities, keeping involved with people, especially, as you age, you have fewer and fewer friends alive. That social circle becomes smaller.
Yes.
So, there are numerous studies that show that positive social interactions and social support are a protective mechanism against a variety of illnesses, as well as cognitive decline as we age.
Okay, so we need to stay social. We need to continue to have friends and do new things and get excited about something, right? I mean, that's important. So thank you for that message, though, because we do have to be careful when we talk to our elderly parents and grandparents about those things.
And that's the last thing I want to just say before we go. How do we talk about this?
It's hard.
In a non-critical, non-judgmental way. And one way that I think to start is a conversation about expectations. Okay.
Okay.
So first, take in stock with yourself, if you have an elderly loved one, what are your expectations of them? And think about, what do I expect them to be doing now in terms of functioning and interaction? Then what do I expect 4 years from now, or 5 years from now, or even next year? What do I expect? Do I expect them to be living in the house? Do I expect to transfer them to maybe a care facility? I mean, these are very hard questions. And then it also paves the way for you to think about, what do your parents expect of you as they age? And to clarify that through conversation with them. Talk about expectations. And you can say it in a loving way. I don't want to let you down, Mom.
Right. So that they feel they have a little control. They have to have a sense of control.
Right. And at the same time, you can get a better understanding of how realistic their expectations might be.
Okay.
Are they realistic? They think that they're going to be in the house another 20 years. Well, if they're 80, probably not. But what is it that they're expecting? Do they want to stay in the house, forever? Do they want care? How do they expect that to happen? Expect who's going to take care of the house. So explore the expectations without being critical or judgmental. You have to, validate what their emotions are about their lifestyle without saying, well, that's ridiculous, or being judgmental. Oh, that can't happen, or that's going to cost a lot of money. Just explore expectations to start without judging their expectations, because that will give you a better understanding of cognitively where they are and where they want to be.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, let me give you a moment to talk to listeners a little bit about some of the stuff you do outside of Sanctuary when you're visiting with me. I know that you've been keynote speaker in so many different national and international symposiums. Is there anything you want to share about that at all?
Yes, I am a coach. I'm a lifestyle coach, executive coach, as well as being a psychologist. I have a coaching practice that's virtual. Although my office is in beautiful downtown West Hartford, I speak to people literally all over the world. And I also do keynote speeches for organizations, corporations, community centers, faith groups on a variety of topics, including aging, staying vibrant through the lifespan. I also talk about the effect of digital technology and social media on our well-being as adults, but also I do these talks for parents as well as teachers about the impact of the digital age on our kids and how that's changing our relationship with our kids, how it changes our communication style. And so I also talk about burnout and stress and how
Oh boy, that's a big one.
I was just honored. I did a seminar for counselors at Betty Ford and Hazelden yesterday on career burnout, which so many of them feel after this pandemic. So there are a variety of topics that I talk about. And of course, I always love talking with you and my friends at Sanctuary. So I'm looking forward to coming back and maybe talking about stress next time.
Oh, that would be fabulous, Sherry. I think our community has really gotten to know you, and I consider you a friend now, and truly appreciate your wealth of knowledge in all of these different areas. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great because we've known each other through the lifespan. So
we have. And it's great. I love that I can continue to collaborate and work with you. It's fabulous.
But I can say you still look the same.
Oh, you do too. You do too. You're rocking it, girl.
We all need friends in our lives that say stuff like that. I always tell people, find friends who are like baking powder and help you rise up.
Oh, I like that too.
Get rid of the friends that are like concrete. Let them go.
We have to do a book on Dr. Sherry Kelly's analogies. That's what I'm thinking now, because I love your analogies. Okay, Sherry. So just to remind listeners, you'll be able to find both part 1 and part 2 of All About Alzheimer's from Sanctuary Magazine. So thank you so much for listening.
Oh, you're welcome. And to learn more about my work or my speeches and lectures, visit me at mindandheartcoaching.com. It's all spelled out, mindandheartcoaching.com, and you'll learn about all of my workshops, my webinars, and also our Positivity Teens workshops for parents, students, and teachers.
That's right. So Positivity Teens is with Caitlin, Sherry's daughter. They're co-founders, and they actually sponsored our Focus on Youth issue last year. So we appreciate that as well. But the URLs will be at the end of this if you want to hang out and get your pencil out. But anyway, I'll close as I always do by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Take good care.